Welcome to Boomer Travel Patrol. I'm your host, Lisa Kaslyn, and today we have a guest from down under, Ainslie Waldron. She is a blogger. She's a specialist in home exchanges, and she's also the author of a book called Luxury Globetrotting on a Staycation Budget. Welcome, Ainslie.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. Although I'm from down under, I live in Australia and I have lived here for 30 years. I actually have a Scottish accent because that was my hometown.
I was wondering about that, and that's my favorite accent. It's the best bro going.
Well, I hope you can understand me all right.
I can. So tell us, how did you become a home exchange expert? How did all that sort of come about?
Well, it came about by doing home exchanges. Obviously, I started with one, and then another one, and then another one, and another one, and then I found I'd done 50, and then I found I'd done 80, and so many people kept asking me about it, and I think they thought I was a millionaire or something because I kept disappearing and living in the most luxurious accommodation. And so many people asked me about it. That's how the book came about, actually, because I would tell them, they would ask a question, and then one question would lead to another question, would lead to another question. And in the end, I was actually in Europe on a home exchange, 6 months trip. And I thought, in the car, in between countries, I'm going to just write all this down in chapters so that everyone can read it, because it would save me a lot of work. So many people asked me about it. And what I did in the book was just write very practical advice, very, very practical advice. It's not, a highbrow book. I mean, I have written other works in my business life, and it's nothing like that. This is practically how you go about it, what to do, and what to do when things go wrong, and all the practicalities of how to leave your house and how to leave a home exchange house, all those sorts of things.
Okay, so you also have this blog, My Place for Yours. Did that came first, right? Did that one come first, or did the book come first?
No, the book came first, and My Place for Yours came around with the book in terms of all the places that I visit. I tend to, sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's daily, sometimes it's monthly. Wow. I blog about the different places that I'm in and the places I visit. So okay. The blog site is part of the website, and the website has more than the blog in it. The website actually has some very interesting pieces of information. For example, it has a whole lot of FAQs, as I was explaining earlier, the sort of questions that people ask. And these are real questions that friends and colleagues, and since I've been doing this more professionally, people I don't know have asked me. And the answers are all there in very practical terms.
Okay. So let's just take a step back, because as you probably know, Airbnb and Flipkey and HomeAway and all these sites have really taken off in tremendous popularity lately. So what's the difference between what a site like that offers in terms of accommodation versus a home exchange?
The difference is home exchanges are free, totally free. So if you go to Airbnb or Firefly or, Stays, you have to pay. You have to pay for accommodation. And okay, it's a good rate, and it's usually, something a bit different. Yeah. But home exchanges are totally and absolutely free. No money changes hands at all. Okay. And there's two different types of home exchanges. There's what's called simultaneous home exchanges and non-simultaneous home exchanges. Simultaneous, kind of obviously you're exchanging at the same time. And non-simultaneous is, which I prefer, is you just kind of build up a bank with people, and they can come at any time to you, and you can go to theirs when you want to. But it's all very informal. While it's kind of formalized, it's also informal. I find that less than 50% of the people who I visited have actually come to visit me in Australia, to stay at my house in Australia. But they're very happy for me to go to their houses. So it's a kind of, once you meet people and get to know them in this world, most people are boomers. Most people are baby boomer age. Most people are very trusting. And I've made some great friendships through this as well. So it actually has an amazing number of bonuses, yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing this story. This is great. This is fantastic information, particularly for our audience. But I think anybody really would benefit from this. So tell me now. Well, I want to know two things. One is, what sites do we use for this particular deal? And then the second, well, you answer that first, then I'll ask my.
Okay. Well, really, the best thing to do is to Google or use your favorite search engine and just write in home exchange websites, and a whole list will come up. There are many of them.
Okay.
And I have a couple of preferences, but I don't like to put people in any particular direction. What I say is, search engine them. You'll find a whole lot of sites, and have a various sites and see which ones you think will best suit you, because some sites have more homes in certain parts of the world than others.
Mm-hmm.
So most sites have an annual fee, which is very reasonable. I mean, perhaps $80 a year or $50 a year. I mean, it's really nothing.
Okay.
And some have less. But before you join, you're usually able to browse and have a good look at the site before you make up your mind.
Okay. So it's sort of like a membership, is it? Like a membership? Yeah. And I guess they check you out, so it's safe. It would be safe.
Well, we found it all particularly safe. I think it's good to look at each site and look at all the comments with the houses and have a look and see, because most people, once they've been to a place, they leave a recommendation of a house, so you can see who's been there and what they thought of the place and how things were, Okay.
Yeah, that's great. And I like that sort of community membership sort of situation, because you can then re-engage with people and maintain the relationship after.
Well, we've actually made friends of friends, because we've had people in our house and then we've been to someone else's house, and then they know the other people that came to our house, and we've made sort of a web of relationships all across the globe. It's been amazing. Okay. And it's like, it's a bit of a small world, but it's a big world, if you know what I mean.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me this now. What if you are in an area that, you may think is not particularly desirable? So, for example, I used to live in New York City, which would be extremely desirable. I moved out of New York City. I'm now about an hour and 15 minutes north of Manhattan. And to me, why would anybody want to come to my house? They probably wouldn't. So right away, I'm sort of thinking, oh, I'm probably not going to, be one of these lucky people that's going to benefit from this. What do you say to that?
Well, a couple of things. One thing is that I've learned over the last 5 or 10 years that most of the places that people want to see, the places on their bucket list, are places that we have been marketed. We have, the marketers have got to us to tell us these are the places we must see. I've been to some amazing places which I'd never heard of before, but there was something intriguing about the house on the home exchange site and what they said about locally. And then I've seen some amazing natural beauty sites. So that's one thing that most of us are actually conditioned by marketers to want to visit certain places. And in fact, there's a huge world out there with sometimes much more magnificent places. The second thing I would say is it depends on the home too. Sometimes I go to a home just for the home because the home looks absolutely fabulous. Another thing I'd say is that if you think your home is not that great, think of it through other people's eyes, and also think of the reasons you live in that place. What do you like about it? And on the website, tell people the things that you like about it. Perhaps you live there because you're an avid cyclist and there's lots of cycling around. And you will have people that are also avid cyclists that want to come to that house. I mean, people say to me, well, why would people want to come to your island house? And I think, well, it's all right here. It's almost just a holiday home, a beach house. But for people from overseas and from other parts of Australia, it's magnificent because we have a house that's right. I'm looking now at the beach. This. Yeah.
It's right on. Turn your screen around. I want to see it.
Can you see?
Yeah, beautiful.
So while we take it for granted because we have it every day, other people don't.
Yeah.
And it becomes something that they value highly. So yes, think about your house and think about whether it's the house itself that's particularly attractive or whether it's all the amenities round about it, because you live there for a reason. So work out what that reason is. Is it a lovely quiet place? Do some people want a nice quiet place for a few weeks? You know, there's always a reason you stay there.
True, it's true, and you can still go to Manhattan, and you can still have.
Yeah, of course, and it's travelable. And that, I mean, for example, I've gone to places that are near major cities. Like I was in a place that was an hour's drive from Rome. I didn't want to stay in Rome. I didn't want the hustle and bustle of Rome, but I did want the ability to drive to Rome and to go in frequently. And I did that just a few months ago, and it was perfect because I was living in a beautiful little village in the mountains where, you know, there was all sorts of idyllic things going on. And the locals were saying to me, why are you staying here? And I said, they didn't understand why I would love to visit them. And yet I found everything so quaint and different, and all the little festivals were amazing, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It's almost a revelation. I like the way you're explaining it and sort of turning my head around about the whole thing, because now I see what you're saying, and I do agree with you, because even myself, when I've traveled, I didn't necessarily want to do the typical tourist thing, but I did want to be in reach of it. So I get it. That makes sense. Okay. If somebody is a newbie and wants to start this, is the first step just merely finding the site that you think works for you, and then just kind of diving into it and saying, hey, I'd like to stay in your house? Do you have to be approved? How does that work? Or you just ask and they say, sure, come on over?
To start with, you simply ask. That is the beginning. It tends to be a very safe thing because it's an exchange thing. You are contracting to exchange your home for their home. So people say, do you not worry about people trashing your house, etc.? Well, for a start, if you're that sort of person that does worry, probably home exchanging isn't for you, to be quite blunt. If you're a worrier, you know, like people that won't have a cleaner in their house because they might go through their things, then they shouldn't do it. It's not for them. But for people that generally are trusting, yes, it's a good thing. And you're exchanging, so there's a safety in that. Well, why would you trash someone else's house if they're going to come to your house? You know, you know what I mean? And there's no money changing hands, and I think that's the biggest deal about it. And I know myself, if I'm renting accommodation, even through Airbnb, if I spill, for example, you know, a cup of tea on the carpet, I will dab it clean. But if I'm staying in a home exchange house and I spill a cup of tea on the carpet, I will keep at that carpet until it is clean as I would want it to be. Do you know what I mean? It's a different mindset.
It's guilt.
Yeah.
I get it. All right. So we could probably talk about this for hours. I know you have some really funny stories, so I wanted you to just tell me one or two of those before we go.
Oh dear. They go on, our stories go on a long time. I'll try and think of one. One of them, for example, we were in Canada, and we were home exchanging on Vancouver Island, which is, you know, a beautiful part of the world. And the next door neighbor came to us and said, hey, I'm going out fishing tomorrow. Would you like to join us? And we said, oh, would we like to join you? Of course. So he took us out and he showed us how they salmon fish in Canada, which is nothing like how we do it down under. They have, they do it deep, and they have this sort of huge line that goes way down, and a massive weight that goes with it. And when the line goes pop, you've got salmon. So that was so exciting. We were catching salmon. And then once we'd caught as many as we were allowed to, you know, he said, well, I'll take you for a drive in the boat round, and he showed us all the beautiful views. And then he said, are you really needing to go home tonight? And we said, no, not really. He said, oh, well, come. And then he drove into this little inlet, and we came to this area where there were floating houses. And it was amazing. There were only like about 10 of them. And he said, these are never approved these days, but the people that own these are old families that have had them for years. And each of those houses was attached to the bank by a couple of logs, big, you know, big logs that you could walk over.
Uh-huh.
It was just amazing. So we hitched up to this house. It was a friend of his that owned it, and we had a dog in the boat with us, so the dog came too. And I went over. I wanted to use the toilet, so I went over the log to the embankment because there was an outhouse on the embankment. And when I was there was a sudden bang, and I thought, oh, what's happening? And I finished what I was doing, and I got back. And they said, oh, we just put the generator on. But I think they did it deliberately to, you know, worry me. So anyway, I just got back, and we had the dog inside the cabin, and the dog suddenly started barking furiously.
Yeah.
So we looked out, and there's this bear starting to come across one of the logs.
Oh my God.
The salmon. We had the salmon in the cool box on the deck. So we had to shoo this bear away. And we put the salmon inside, of course. Anyway, then we started cutting up the salmon. I had a delicious meal. It was so beautiful. Just salmon and butter and nothing else. And we couldn't even finish the slices. We had them for breakfast in the morning. All the things you probably shouldn't have, but just glorious. Anyway, then later that night, it was dark. And then the dog started barking again. And the bear was there again, trying to come over. And the dog, which was a young dog, a big dog, but a young dog, and fairly naive, started to chase the bear. So then they both disappeared. And then we were all wondering what had happened. And then all we heard was, we were calling the dog, and we couldn't find it. And we thought, oh no, it was a naive dog. Yeah. Anyway, then we heard this, ooh, ooh, ooh. We thought, wow, there's a dog. So then we found, my partner, Mike, he took a torch and went over to the embankment, very bravely, I thought. And he found the dog. The dog just couldn't find its way back. And the dog was unharmed, so we brought the dog back in. So then we were settling in for the night. And of course, the men, when they wanted to pee, they just did it over the side, which actually gave us amazing phosphorescence in the water. Not that I was looking, but it did. Anyway, I thought, wait a minute. The outhouse is across that log.
Uh-oh.
And it would be a very unusual night for me when I didn't need to pee. What am I going to do? No way I'm going over there in the middle of the night in the dark. So I actually found a bucket thing. And I waited till I could hear both men literally snoring in their bunks. Once they were snoring, the two men I was with, I went and I had very quietly, and in the morning I quietly tipped it over. Well, in the morning, when I went to quietly tip it over, there wasn't just one bear on the bank. There were 3 bears on the bank. So I was so glad that I had my little bucket with me. I've got photos of the bears. It was amazing.
Were they grizzlies? Were they grizzlies or black bears?
Oh no, they were black bears. No, they weren't grizzlies. But the black bears was bad enough.
Yeah, they're still bears.
Yeah. They were still scary. They were scaring me. In fact, there was 2 and a young one. There was 2 older bears and a young bear. I couldn't tell if they were male or female. I presume they were female.
Oh boy, that's a good one.
So I have got lots and lots of stories, because you know, these adventures, you meet people and they take you to places you never think you'll go, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to look at your blog, right? You have these stories on your blog.
I have some of the stories on the blog, and I have quite a few of the stories in the book, because just to jazz the book up a bit, I put Ainslie's adventures in, so I think that story might be in the book. There's quite a few stories in the book, and they're all real things that have happened to me when I've been traveling. So.
Unbelievable. All right, so just to
remind you, so it costs nothing. It's only a couple of dollars or something on Amazon, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna remind people to get it. So look, first, let me just remind them, your site is myplaceforyours.com, correct?
Yeah, myplaceforyours.com.
Yep. And then your book, which, as you said, can be purchased on Amazon, is Luxury Globetrotting on a Staycation Budget.
Yeah, and you get a free Kindle app with it if you don't have one when you buy the book.
Okay. So we want to have you back again sometime. This was wonderful.
Oh, good.
I want to hear about your adventures.
Oh, I've got lots of adventures.
Well, I'm
Kaslyn seems to follow me around the world.
I'm going to check out home exchanges on Google, and I'm going to sign up right away.
Yeah. Well, it's changed my life. It's a magnificent lifestyle.
All right. Well, listen, congrats and keep going.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye, Ainslie.
Bye.